Hey guys, it's Coolio. I just wanted to make a quick tutorial video for Clip Studio Paint. I'll try to be brief, and I'll try not to reiterate on information that's easily found in other YouTube videos. One thing you'll probably notice right off the bat is my screen might look a little different from yours. The reason for that is I've moved all of my tools to the right side of the screen, leaving all my work on the left, just so it's a little more convenient for me. To move things around, it's pretty simple. Just grab the window at the top and set it where you want it to be, just like most Windows programs. Alright, so we're going to create a new canvas. Up here, this little icon, the paper and the star. It's got a couple things where you can adjust the settings of your work that you're going to be working on based on what kind of work it is. I tend to just stick with the illustration. It's simple. This is the width and the height, which is important. And this is the unit of what this is going to be. And there's different sizes of measurements. I stick with pixels. If you've ever done something like an icon, it requires it to be 250 by 250 pixels. This is a good place to set that up in advance. Paper color is usually on by default, but this is just saying that it's going to create a layer that's a paper layer, and that basically just gives you a background to draw on. This is our paper layer in the bottom right. If I click this little eyeball, it'll hide this layer so that we see only layer 1, which is a raster layer. This pixelated looking color is actually transparent. And it's very important to note that there's a big difference between the color white and a transparent background. To select a transparent color in your 3 colors here, you can select it there. Or if you want to use the eraser tool, it erases into a transparent color. The 2 new layers you'll find down here. One is the raster layer, which is used for coloring usually. And the other is a vector layer. It's got the little box in the corner, new vector layer. This is used for if you do cartooning, drawing hard color outlines. You can do a lot of things with the vector layer right here with this tool, as far as moving points in your vector layer around. So if you want to readjust how it looks, you can pinch it to make it, I don't know, not be quite the same. You can redraw. Lots of options there. After you've been practicing for a while, you may notice you're missing a brush that you'd like. You can download some online, various textures and effects. And what you'll do is, once you've downloaded it and extracted it and open the file, you'll find something like this, an SUT file. Just pick it up, drag it, and place it underneath whatever tool you want it to be used as. At some point you may want to create your own brush or edit a brush that's already in the program. What you'll do is you'll click on this icon here, the little wrench, and when you click on it, whatever you have selected, you'll find more settings than what you'll find in here to adjust it with. One that is pretty useful, I find, is controlling the thickness of your line, which is really good for creating shadows and silhouettes. And you can control right here the direction of like what direction that is facing. Another thing is anti-aliasing. Like with this brush, it's got a very hard outline, but if I wanted to go with a strong anti-aliasing, it basically blurs a couple pixels into the background so that it doesn't look quite as strong or as pixelated as it would otherwise be. A couple useful hotkeys that come default with the program. If you press Control plus Alt and then left click and drag, you can change your brush's size and quickly get whatever brush size you want without having to go through all this. Another useful hotkey is if you hold down the space button and then left click, you can drag your work around. If you scroll in and you want to do fine detail, you can use the space bar to quickly drag and look at different things. If you hold down the Shift key and then scroll up or down, it rotates the screen. If you ever want to reorient your work back to be straight, just click this little button right here, this little spiral shape, and it will reorient back to normal. If you'd like to look at all the hotkeys, you can go under File and then into Shortcut Settings, and here you'll find all the different shortcuts. You can click on them and edit them and make new ones. Some that I found to be useful are underneath Layer and New Layer. You can create new raster layer with this shortcut, a new vector layer, and a new paper layer. All these weren't set when I started the program, so you can set them to whatever you'd like. And further down under Layer Settings, a good one is Change Layer Name. It'll help you stay a little more organized and know just what's on each different layer that you're working with. Another one to look under is under File, Modifier Key Settings. So this is just like when you use the mouse wheel or Control plus moving your mouse around. There's several common settings that are used. These are like kind of default, and then there's settings for each tool. So if I was using the fill pin and then I was to press, you gotta be careful with scrolling. If I was to press Control, it would change the tool to the object selector tool. If I press Alt, it'll change to the eyedropper. In the same way as right click is a common setting for changing to the eyedropper, which selects the color in the background. Another thing you may want to know about is this little bar right here. This is how you change the opacity of something, and if you go down, it'll kind of tone it down. And this is really good for if you want to trace over something, or maybe something you think is too dark and you want to just lighten it up a bit. There's a lot of different uses for that. Another thing you might find useful is directly below that, there's a little torch icon. That's used for setting something as a reference layer, which is good if you're doing cartooning and you draw several shapes, and later on you want to go on a completely different layer for when you do your coloring. You can refer to the reference layer, which is found right here, this little button, and now when you paint anything, it'll go back to that layer as what you're going to paint over. Now the icon that's directly beside it, this icon, is used to inset a layer to the layer that's directly below it. And to show that off, I'm going to open a drawing that I did for a friend of mine, and we'll go and look for, I've got two different layers here. One is the shirt layer, and one is Inset, which if you see this little pink icon is displaying that. And what that does is anything that I draw on this layer that's Inset only affects the pixels that are not transparent on the one directly below it. So what that did was, originally she had an orange shirt. By making this layer and insetting it, I can go over it with any new color I want and add highlights to it. I can completely change the color of it. There's a lot of fun things you can do with that. And that can be done for lots of different layers. It's a good way to get certain tones and highlights into things, to add shadows to things. Another layer that you might find useful, you have to create a new raster layer, and then right here next to the opacity where it says normal, you can find lots of different types of what kind of layer it is. And one that I like is this hard light. When you draw something in hard light, everything that is below it, this medium gray is just what it is, the regular color. But if you get a darker color gray, it kind of puts the shadow, and less than just putting black on it, it's toning down all the colors to a darker color of that tone. And the same goes for lighter colors. And this is really useful for creating shadows for things and not having all your shadows on the same layer. Once you have your artwork where you like it, one thing you can do is you can take all your layers and merge them together. Now make sure you save before you do this. This is good for, you can go in and under Edit, Tonal Correction, you can change a lot of things with it. Now you can do this one layer at a time. I think it only works for different raster layers, but you can use this to modify like the brightness of your picture. You can make it a little darker, and you can also use, there's lots of them, but I'll just show two of them off. You can change the hue of what your picture looks like. So I can make her more like this, I don't know, maybe she's a zombie chick now. Just a couple things you can try out. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got any other questions or any tips, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.